Good morning. It's day 3 of messing around on YouTube. Just trying to figure out, what it is that I kind of want to talk about today. And, I think what's on my mind to share today is just flesh out the ideas that I have for future YouTube projects. So this might be a good video for people to watch that are of the same mind that I am. So one of the things that, really the overarching principle or philosophy guiding the direction of not this channel, but the new channel that I spoke about yesterday is really what it means to be a man. And I would argue that it's hard in a modern age where everything's so easy. We've got DoorDash, we've got mobile devices with the world's information at our fingertips. We have so many modern conveniences that I think that many of us as men have gotten soft. And so the principle, the guiding principle and philosophy behind my next project is really what does it mean to be a man, and how do we as men navigate our lives in a right way, and ultimately what is it that determines what a true man is. And so anyway, I just want this talk today again to be practice for that future project, for that channel that does exist, but yet I haven't started anything on it yet. So I guess what does that look like? What does that look like to make content around what it means to be a real man? I think that there are several aspects to being a real man that a channel like that could cover. And there are admittedly any number of YouTube channels with giga chads out there telling you to only eat meat and you gotta be keto and you gotta wake up at 4 a.m. and none of those things are necessarily bad, I guess, but more than anything, I want to start a channel, or I want this new channel to be a little bit different in that I think being a real man requires quite a bit of balance. I would never argue against, being strong, being capable, being gentle and loving when called for, but also being hard and dangerous when called for. Because there are times when a man needs to know how to be gentle, but there's also a time when a man needs to know how to be dangerous and harsh even at times. So there's this balance that's required to be what I would consider to be a total man. And like I said, there's already a number of content creators out there making content like this. I'm not a guru and I'm not special. Really, this new channel is going to be, documenting not only the things that I've learned and I feel like maybe I've more or less mastered, but also the things that I'm insufficient in and my growth. I'll be talking about some of those things. I'll be talking about my growth in. So largely it'll be something that the audience can follow along with me as I grow, and because I have not yet arrived. I would never want to be considered somebody like a Jocko Willink on the internet that people look to as some kind of authority. I'm not. My authority, or any authority I have, comes from something greater than me. So I'm not somebody that you should listen to and take everything I say wholesale, because I can get things wrong. But I do want to kind of share the things that both I've learned and the things that I'm learning as I kind of pursue this idea of true masculinity, true manliness. And that sounds kind of cringy, but and for some of you, maybe some of you have this figured out. Maybe growing up you had a good dad, a good coach, a good mentor, a good pastor, good youth leaders, good neighbors, whatever it was. Maybe you had people in your life to kind of show you the way, but I didn't. That's not where I'm coming from. And so I'm 39 years old, and I feel like I'm learning a lot of these lessons later in life. And so that's really what I want to share is if you're somebody like me who really didn't have somebody to kind of lead him in how to be a man, how to navigate life's challenges, how to navigate failure, how to navigate relationships and things like that, that's really kind of who I want to talk to, because that's who I am and that's what I can speak to. So if you've got it figured out and you've got a great dad, you've got a great grandpa, you've had mentors and coaches growing up, praise the Lord for that. I'm glad and happy for you that you had that, but some of us didn't. And so I think that there's a large swath of us who didn't have an example of what good manliness looked like. So anyway, that's kind of my idea behind this new channel, and I think it encompasses a lot. I mean, being a man encompasses so much. It encompasses being a good provider for your family, a protector, and you could dive so deep down, and it's more than just provider and protector. That's just two aspects of what it means to be a man. I think what it means to be a man also means to be in control of your emotions, using them for good purposes, and not being enslaved to your emotions or to anger or sadness or despair. So there's many aspects of what it means to be a man. One of those aspects that I'm most interested in is the defensive side of things, firearms. So that will certainly be a part of what I want to do. I have a history of some firearms and self-defense training. I used to, on occasion, participate in local, pistol matches, like IDPA style pistol matches, but it wasn't actually IDPA. I went to like a local club that kind of did their own in-house matches, but it was, if you're familiar with IDPA, very similar in style to IDPA, or maybe even something like IPSC. So anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk to, just talk about today is everyday carry, or EDC. And today, as far as it goes for, defensive implements that a man can carry, I'm talking firearms specifically. If it's legal to carry firearms in your area, I would highly encourage getting some training, getting your concealed carry permit, and carrying lawfully. But, and I have for years. So one of the things that I want to talk about is my favorite pistols on the market today. And the only reason I want to talk about it is because I do think that this pistol is super awesome. I can't obviously showcase it because I'm driving, but again, this channel's just practice. I'm just doing this as practice to settle on a topic and flesh out my thoughts on it. So that's really all my goal is to accomplish today. But anyway, so the pistol that I'm referring to is the Ruger RXM. And for those of you that are familiar, the Ruger RXM, and for those of you that aren't familiar for that matter, the Ruger RXM is a Generation 3 Glock clone. It's quite interesting because the cool thing about Generation 3 Glock clones is that, much like the AR-15 of the past, which is a rifle, right, not a pistol, but very similarly to the AR-15, it's patent expired. So any number of manufacturers can manufacture an AR-15 patterned rifle. And much in the same way, Glock's Generation 3 patent has expired. And so now you've got any number of pistol manufacturers or firearms manufacturers manufacturing pistols after the Generation 3 Glock design. But not only are they manufacturing it after the Generation 3 pattern, they're bringing modern improvements to it. The RXM is one of those pistols. Some of the most interesting things about the RXM, and just for reference, I've always been a Glock guy in my training, in shooting competition, in dry fire, in daily concealed carry. I've always carried some variant of Glock, most commonly a Glock 19. I had a roll-in special back in the day that I sold We did a big move, and so a lot of guns got sold when we got moved. We did an interstate move, and so when we moved, I sold a lot of firearms. So that was one of them that got sold, but it was actually a roll-in special, or a faux-lin special. It was a Glock 19 custom milled for a Trijicon RMR. I had a Silencer Co. barrel in it with Texas Black Rifle Co. They're not around anymore, but I had a Texas Black Rifle Co. Compact compensator on it with a Streamlight TLR1 HL. And that's what I carried every single day. I don't carry with that, but I just kind of wanted to bring up that, hey, like, I used to carry nothing but Glocks. But one of the reasons I like the Ruger RXM so much is that it is, in its soul, like in its very soul, it's a Generation 3 Glock. And between Generation 3 and Generation 5 Glocks, they're some of the highest regarded Glocks. Generation 3s are kind of the standard in a lot of people's minds. And so it's really interesting because in years past, I would have never considered carrying anything to a Glock or a really tried and tested platform like maybe the Smith & Wesson M&P or, a SIG, something like that. Just something that's tried and tested. You could argue that SIG, is not tried and tested today, but I'm not going to get into that. So anyway, all that being said about tried and tested designs, Generation Glock 3, all that to be said, I never in a million years thought that I would consider carrying a Ruger firearm for self-defense. Largely, they're more or less considered subpar when compared to something like a Glock or a Smith & Wesson or a SIG. And I don't know that that's true that they are, but they're not seen in duty use or in military use or in common concealed carry among citizens. And so it's something I never would have considered. But it was late 2024, I believe, that Ruger announced their partnership with Magpul to release this RXM. And I immediately was interested because it had so many features right outside of the box that in years past, you would have to get custom done on your Glock. So for example, on my roll-in special that I had to send that firearm out for custom milling to have that slide milled to accept the Trijicon RMR. And that was before the MOS, the Glock MOS, the optic mounting system. But the Ruger comes with a lot of these customizations right from the factory, which is amazing. And then the price is very competitive. And I think a lot of these manufacturers that are making Glock clones can kind of get away with these prices because not a whole ton of research probably has to go into, or not a whole lot of capital needs to be invested into R&D, even though I would assume that there was a ton of R&D done with the RXM. But I think that because they already have a base gun to work from, there's capital that could be invested in other things that can also translate to a cheaper price at the counter in the gun store. And I can't say prices here because of YouTube rules and restrictions, but I think that the Ruger RXM is very, very compelling because it's at its core, it's a Generation Glock 3, proven reliable, but it comes in at a very competitive price. And so anyway, I picked one up, and I actually shoot just as well, if not better, with the RXM than I do the Glock. Some of the things that they've done is, like I said, they got the optic milling right. The RXM is milled from the factory to accept a wide range of optics, and it's got a very interesting pin system that allows you to put recoil bosses that match your specific optic, and it's very easy to mount. It comes with everything you need, and except for the screws, the specific screws for your optic, that'll generally come with whoever manufactures your optic. So that's a major key selling point is, it's 2026. If you're not carrying a firearm with a mounted optic, especially now, just like firearms, optics, red dot, reliable red dot optics for pistols have only increased in quality and durability, but decreased in price and cost. And so if you're not looking for a gun straight from the factory with a you know a from the factory mounting solution, you know, what are you even doing? So that's one main key selling point of the RXM, is that it comes with a pretty robust direct slide mounted solution for your red dot optic. And then the grip is very interesting as well. So I think the major key selling point of the Ruger RXM is the fact that it has like a removable chassis that can be taken out and put into other grip modules. And so that allows for this aftermarket to make completely different grips from those that Magpul manufactures for this platform. So, you know, there's companies like Icarus Precision out there making aftermarket grips for the Ruger RXM. There is Pierce Bros, I believe, making another one, machined from aluminum, so it's pretty cool. And Flux Defense has also actually announced that they're going to be making a Flux Raider for the RXM platform, which is one of the main drivers for why I bought a second RXM. So it's very interesting, and I think that's the key selling point of the Ruger RXM, is the chassis system. But the grip itself that Magpul makes is, in my opinion, far superior to anything that Glock has ever made when it comes to the grip texture. You know, the elimination of the bump on the grip that Glocks have. There's a slight beaver tail, and as somebody that suffers from a little bit of slide bite when I shoot Glocks without a beaver tail, that little slight beaver tail on an RXM is very much appreciated. But one of the things that I found the first time I picked up an RXM to check it out, I was with a bunch of buddies at a local indoor range, and one of my friends actually manages this local indoor range. And he knew that I was interested in the RXM, so he went and got one from behind the gun counter and allowed me to shoot it. And I picked it up and fired a string of maybe 5 shots or whatever through it, and put all of those rounds through the same hole at 10 yards, and then pushed it out to about 15 yards and had a maybe like a 4-inch group at 15 yards at a not a slow fire cadence. And I just remember like, whew, this thing is a shooter, and I loved it from the moment that I picked it up. And so after that, at the time I was carrying a Glock 49. So for those of you that aren't familiar, a Glock 49 is like a Glock 17 length slide on a Glock 19 length sized frame, a grip. And I sold that Glock 49 so that I could get an RXM. And I actually sold a Glock. The gun that I've carried over the years, I sold one to pick up an RXM, and I still to this day am carrying an RXM. I think, so one of the things that I want to talk about when it comes to being a protector, all of that stuff to be said about how cool I think the RXM is, bringing it back full circle into our conversation about what it means to be a man, to be a provider, a protector, those kinds of things, to work hard, to have integrity. It's all encompassing. There's so many things that go into being a man. I think the RXM is an amazing choice for men who are on a budget, who are fiscally responsible, just looking for a reliable way to protect their families. And so I think it's a very prudent choice for practical protection for any man looking to pursue that or grow in that aspect of being a man. And for all of those reasons, it's a very solid choice. The price is right. You can shoot it casually and have a good time. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend getting some serious training with your firearm and taking training seriously. But you can shoot it casually, but at this point I'm pretty convinced that it will also take a very serious beating. I have no reason to believe that it's not just about as robust as a Glock right from the factory. So all of that to be said, I think that, again, this is just an exercise for me to pick a topic and run with some key points that I think are important kind of off the cuff and on the fly. But if you take any nuggets away from this, if you're interested in pursuing that aspect of your life as a man, maybe consider looking at the Ruger RXM if you haven't yet. I carry it every day. It's a fantastic firearm, and I believe it'll serve most men well. And for those of us men that want to steward our finances well, I also think it's a very sensible, prudent option when considering a firearm for personal protection. So maybe consider that, going forward. Obviously, I'm a shrinking channel at this point, and so I'm not sponsored by Ruger. This is all, just speaking from personal experience, the way I think about things. And so I'm not sponsored. This isn't sponsored. I just think the Ruger RXM makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. So anyway, if you found that helpful, let me know if you carry what you carry for personal protection. I choose the Ruger RXM. I've got a Vortex Defender ST mounted to the slide. I have two, in fact. And let me know what you carry, if you carry. Let me know how I can help you in your search for maybe a personal firearm for carry. I've got a lot of experience in what works, what doesn't. Over the years, I've spent a lot of money on training, equipment, and so I've made a lot of mistakes as well. And so I can kind of help you through what not to do and what things to consider. And so all that to be said, I hope that this video finds you well. I hope that you enjoyed the rant, and overall and ultimately, I hope that this helped you, even though I'm just making these videos for practice. I still want to deliver some kind of value, and so pray that this helps you. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in the things that I've said, if you carry something, if you've got an EDC, if you are interested in firearms training, what you do for training. I would be interested to hear about all that, and I will respond to the comments. So all that to be said, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.